You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 9th part of What If Deku and Hero Academia Joins Super Sentai. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of GokuMuto on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Then suddenly out of nowhere, thunder crackled above the city, which immediately drew the attention of everyone there, as this made the Go-Busters, Nick, the MLA members, and everyone else in the area of the city to glance up into the sky. One of Chitosa's assistants holding the camera pointed it into the air for everyone across the planet to see it was well. In the sky above the city, everyone there in the area or across the globe watching from different locations throughout the planet saw green computer code data flickering 3 kilometers into the air, before shaping itself into a gigantic green and red orb hovering in the sky. It solidified and rounded, covered by an endless number of ones and zeros that rippled from its form, and trembled as if it could collapse in on itself at any moment. The Go-Busters and their allies were struck with looks of horror at what they were watching, and knew what was coming out of that gigantic shape of data. Then the next thing that happens throws everyone into utter chaos as a gigantic silver robot with shovel arms that shoveloid bursts through the orb and plummets to the ground below, landing within a kilometer of Tokyo Tower. This resulted in an abandoned office building exploding as they were crushed under the shovel zord's feet, and the city quaked much to everyone's disbelief and horror. CRP, the megazord here. Nick shouted in a panicked tone. This can't get any worse. But as fate had it, the situation further worsened with more gigantic green and red orbs appearing all over the city and the sky, as they released other megazords of different types being brought in from hyperspace with them dropping into the city. Then the Megazord Beta and the other megazords stomped through the city, with Shovel Zord making its way toward Tokyo Tower to steal the energon under it, while the other megazords also caused leaving mass destruction in its wake with a large explosion going off in the surrounding area and more buildings being damaged or destroyed in the process, as this was something straight out of a nightmare. This sight was enough to freak out everyone there and the ones watching from different locations, and the civilians ran like crazy. The giant robots then began going on a killing spree, and needless to say, the heroes and law enforcers in Japan immediately got into action. Oh my god, the city! A male in Chitosa's crew cried out in horror at the megazords rampant throughout the city, as well as everyone watching the broadcast. This can't be happening. This has got to be a dream. Another one Chitosa's crew members shouted while trying to deny the truth, as the people in the area began to panic in fear while running far away from the titanic killing machine. Ren watched in horror as the vagless megazord was trampling the city apart before his glacé then shifted up at Enter, who was smirking smugly the entire time at their expression and enjoying every second of it like the evil BSTRD he was. You! Ren said with an low angry tone. You son of a b! The boy shouted in rage before pointing at Enter. What have you done? He stated with everyone's attention now back on the evil avatar, who was only smirking with a twisted expression on his face. Enter only lets out a devious chuckle, with his laughter echoing not only through the battlefield but also through the news crew's cameras, as they also picked up the screams and destruction in the background while broadcasting every single thing happening to the entire world, as many people watching in shock and disbelief at the level of destruction the Vagless were causing. It's Bo, is it not? Enter said with his hand out at the megazords wreaking havoc on the city. I really outdid myself this time. He stated as the Go-Busters pointed their weapons at him. Enter, you're going to pay for this. Midoriya declared to the man. We can stay here and fight if you want, but I thought you'd want to save the city, Enter commented lightly while putting away his laptop. So what, it's going to be Go Busters? He asked with a cocky grin, knowing he had the upper hand, as this only irritation the Go Busters. As much as I hate to admit it, he has a point, Ren said with a growl while he lowered his weapon, as they knew he was right. Protecting the city is more important right now. He told them, as that made Midoriya and Melissa lower their weapons too in frustration. Yeah, we'll deal with him later. Right now the city comes first. Melissa told her teammate, who nodded in agreement. But don't think this is over for a second, Midoriya said, but stopped mid-sentence as Enter suddenly disappeared from sight, much to everyone's shock. He's gone. Shoto stated in surprise as the culprit behind the attack just vanished. Where did he go? Forget, Enter. We don't have the time for it. Ren said as his attention went back onto the vagless megazord turning the city apart. Right now we have bigger concerns to worry about before anything else. Yokohama City, League of Villains Noma Factory, morning. This is truly magnificent. All for One commented with an evil laugh while on live stream on his monitor. It's even better than I predicted it would be. He said, enjoying the chaos on screen, with the whole world set off by this unforeseen event. It's been years since he felt this excited about anything, and now new players have been added to the board. Players he could use to recommend his empire that past users of One for All and other heroes have taken from him many years ago. So they call themselves the Vagless, and the one leading this is this Enter character. Well, I hope to meet you one of these days, Enter. All for One said with a grin, as he wanted to know more about these and what else they were capable of if they could do this much to one city. Tokyo Tower, afternoon. Meanwhile, from across the whole planet, the world watches in utter shock and terror as 7 gigantism machines, that were beta and alpha types, appear from the sky and start terrorizing Japan by destroying everything in their path, with buildings collapsing like dominoes and multiple explosions going off all over the place, causing a chain reaction that sets the city ablaze in a sea of fire. One step after another, Gypsy marched forward, the ground cracking and thundering with every step they took, as footsteps of death echoed within the deep of the streets. The dread of fear took over the citizens of Japan, with their home nation being trampled on by the Vagless attack, as social media went ablaze with thousands of comments being posted on the internet by the moment, with the people panicking about how the heroes would deal with this madness, and everyone could only blame that villain Enter for causing this nightmare to befall onto them. The villains and criminals in Japan, along with the rest of the world, were either shitting themselves in fear to avoid being killed by Vagless or wishing to meet them in person to form some kind of alliance with the Sentai villains. The Vagless Megazord began to lay waste to the city, as the heroes and the law enforcers in the area of Tokyo Tower were busy evacuating the people near the area from the fight, while some pro-heroes and soldiers had been attempting to stop a 40-foot monster with their quirks, guns, and rocket launchers, but to no avail. It seemed useless due to the fact the Megazord Alphas were fast and could simply move to a different location rather easily, while the Megazord Betas were more durable and stronger as they tanked the humans' attacks without much issue, as the people of this world were throwing everything they had. The Vagless Megazords, but they have proven to be more incredible strength, agility, and durability than anything they faced before in the past. Overall, this is going to be the toughest fight the pro-heroes and the people of this world will experience, especially since they never fought anything like this before in their lives. What are we going to do? My punches don't work. Death Arms shouted while delivering more punches in hopes one of the Vagless Megazord's durability would wear off eventually. I don't know. Kamui Woods answered before swinging towards the same Megazord Alpha's head and getting slapped by the robot, causing him to crash through a building and land on another building. Kamui! Death Arms shouted worriedly for his fellow hero before looking at the Megazord with an angry expression. DMNU! He charged at the Gigant Titan to punch the robot with all of his power. The Megazord Alpha saw this and slammed its arm into Death Arms, as the hero went through multiple buildings, which will definitely be a nightmare for the Hero Public Safety Commission to pay for the expenses. The Megazord Alpha then started firing multiple missiles and guns fire onto the heroes and Japanese military soldiers who were bothering him like a mosquito while causing tons of destruction and whipping out their forces in the process with ease, along with the other Megazords who encountered them as screams of terror from the people filled the air. Some of them were critically injured while others were in a comatose state as a result. The vagless Megazords were too powerful for the heroes and law enforcement to be taken on head first without the heavy hitters or big guns. There has to be a way to beat these things. A Japanese soldier stated that he wasn't going to let these things destroy his home. Don't give up. We have to keep fighting. Another soldier shouted while shooting at the Megazord. But what are we supposed to do? One of the heroes with a broken arm asked. None of our attacks are doing anything to slow them down. I don't know. Our current strongest hitters are knocked out. The second hero answered before coughing BLD. Not all of them. A female voice shouted, making them turn to see a familiar giantess arrive at the scene. Pick someone your own size. Mount Lady declared while running at the Megazord at full speed. It's Mount Lady. Someone cried out in surprise. Maybe, she might stand a chance against those things. Another person said in a hopeful tone. When Mount Lady managed to arrive, she grew into a gigantic size in hopes of fighting the vagless Megazords and incapacitating them easily, which will definitely make her more popular for defeating an enemy that veteran pro heroes are struggling against. Canyon Cannon. Mount Lady shouted out her ultimate move while launching a powerful flying kick to the Megazord Alpha's back. The Megazord Alpha barely budged from its spot, before stopping what it was doing and turning back to its attacker, as the Megazord's attention was now on this new threat with Mount Lady looking up in shock and disbelief on her face as reality then struck her hard like a bolt of lightning. The vagless Megazord was about doubled her size, which doesn't make any sense, as the heroine never images facing anything bigger than her. Oh CRP, this thing is way taller than me. Mount Lady thought as she looked up at the giant robot as it was much taller than her, which slowly turned into fear when she felt the Megazord's eyes zeroing in on her. No matter. This is a job only I can do. Take this. Mount Lady started throwing a chain of punches at the Megazord Alpha, who only stood there unaffected by her strikes before taking only the simplest move by slapping the pro across the face to knock the woman aside with no issue and sending the heroine flying into a near building, which made it collapse upon impact and Mount Lady laying on top of the rubble before resuming its march through the city. Ugh! Mount Lady groaned in excruciating pain while pushing herself up from the damaged building. The side of her left face was already bruised up and BLD was dripping from her forehead. And all of that is caused by a simple slap to her head. What kind of a villain is this? She then looked up to see the killer robot continuing its rampage on the city and completely forgetting about her like it wasn't worth her time. Hey! Don't ignore me. She was seemingly annoyed, before recomposing herself as she got up and prepared to attack the Megazord from behind again. How about my peak punch dash? But then suddenly, a building right next to her was demolished by a Megazord Beta charging right through it without much problem, which shocked everyone there with the unexpected surprise. Mount Lady barely had time to even react or process what just happened as the Megazord Beta rammed into Mount Lady like a speeding truck, making her shriek out in even more pain and sending the giant heroine flying back several blocks away, as she impacted of her fall causes more property to the street and people flee away from her to avoid being crushed. No. Mount Lady. Backdraft cried out to his fallen college. I thought Mount Lady can handle those things, right? Gunhead asked in shock to see her being pushed back so easily. Are you kidding? Those big metal BSTRDS are like twice as tall as her. Crimson Riot shouted back. There got to be something we can do for her, right? A random hero asked if there was a way to help her. DMN that smarts. Mount Lady groaned out while suffering in pain from the sneak attack. I didn't even see it coming. She lets a frustrating while struggling to stand back up from the damage she had taken. Then the Megazord Beta approaches the injured heroine with heroes and soldiers trying to stop the monster, but to no luck as the Megazord's body is too durable to put a scratch on it. When the Vagless Megazord got close enough to Giant Pro Hero, the robot fired a purple laser beam from its eye and flew directly towards Mount Lady, making the giant woman's eyes then immediately try to move out of the way by duck to the floor while deactivate her quirk to shrink back to her normal size to avoid the beam. The purple laser beam may have missed its target by it still carved right through several buildings, which also caused a chain reaction of massive explosions in the area leveling everything to the ground. That also includes the nearby heroes and law enforcement who were caught in the crossfire of the blast that grievously injured multiple individuals and made more people scream from the destruction, as the assault not only forced the heroes and soldiers back to flee away to safety with them powerless to stop a single Megazord. Meanwhile, Mount Lady is knocked far away from the recoil of the explosion and nearly passes out due to her injuries. Her hero costume was badly damaged and too injured to use her quirk again with the hero looking up at the Megazord still leveling the city, as they felt a sense of humiliation and frustration after losing a giant battle so badly. Luckily for her, 2 soldiers found the hurt woman and dragged heroine away to safety as they were doing their best to avoid the Megazord destruction. I didn't even stand a chance against them, DMN it all. Mount Lady muttered in a week while feeling utterly defeated before passing out due to her injuries. Back at Tokyo Tower, the MLA members were petrified in terror at the hell the Vagless were unleashing onto the city as buildings were leveled, fires slowly spreading, the image of a natural disaster having demolished the whole city, and it was only getting worse by the second with everyone in the world watched this felt the fear of despair and hopelessness taking over them. I never imagined something like this was even possible. Chito's thought while observing everything unfold in front of her eyes, as she felt a cold waste of fear and dread running down her spine at the level of chaos the Vagless was causing. "Ma'am, we need to get out of here." A female assistant yelled, clearly trying to keep her fear in check at how one of the giant robots managed to take down Mount Lady without much trouble and continued their attack on the city. "She's right, boss. Staying here any longer is complete suicide." A male assistant agreed as their lives were more important than a story. Chitos just ignores her assistant screaming while looking over at the Go-Busters who were still there watching the Vagless Megazord and talking with each other, as it looked like they were forming some kind of plan. Wait, they knew about these Vagless better than any here. So do they have a way of stopping this? Chitos thought and wondered how the vigilantes would handle this problem. What's the game plan here, Red Buster? Nick asked his partner for the game plan. That's simple, Nick. We're going to stop those Megazords. Ren said to his team, and also shocking Chitos, her assistants, and pretty much everyone watching the broadcast. What? You're seriously going to stop those things on your own? Chitos asked out in disbelief. Of course, we are. Midoriya replied back to the reports in a serious manner. We're the only ones here who even stand a chance at stopping those things. Yeah, after all, dealing with threats like this is our responsibility as members of the Super Sentai, Melissa said to them with confidence. It doesn't matter what enemy we're fighting or how big they may be, we don't quit. Ever. That's what it means to be Super Sentai. Ren declared in a passionate tone of courage and unshakable resolve before looking at his teammates and buddy Royd. You guys with me on this too, right? 100% all the way, Ren. Nick said to his partner as he followed him into battle no matter what. This is not even a question. Of course, you can count me in too. Midoriya said with a serious response. Me too as well, Ren. I follow your lead anywhere. Melissa said in agreement. Chitos, her crew, and everyone in the entire world watching the news broadcast were taken back in bewildered expression at how the 3 Go-Busters refused to give up despite the horrific situation they were in at the moment. It was an inspiring show of heroism, unlike anything everyone had ever seen before in their lives, a testament that they were against those that threatened law and order, and a promise that the 3 quirkless teens would never give up no matter the cost and accomplish the impossible to see their justice through to the very end. This made so many people look at the Super Sentai team as more than just a bunch of lawless vigilantes, but a beacon of hope in the darkness when things go rough. Beeping. Then out of complete nowhere, the Go Busters morphin braces started to beep, which got their attention as they immediately knew who was calling them. "You think it's Zero again?" Melissa asked them. "Gotta be. The timing is way too convenient," Midoriya replied with a nod. "Only one way to find out," Ren said before they answered the call on their morphin braces. "This you, Zero?" he asked while moving his device to his face. "Right as always, Ren," the Judgment God said to them in a pleasant tone. "I'm glad to see that you three were able to beat the Metalloid. But it seems that you a bit of help to deal with the Megazords." "Yeah, which is why we need a buster vehicle right away," Ren said with seriousness at how the urgent situation is right now. "Understood, I'm sending you CB-01 now. It should be there in a moment," Zero said to them before hanging up the call. The three teens and Buddy Royd then made eye contact with one another before nodding their heads at each other, as they knew what must be done. "Alright, Nick. Do your thing," Ren said to his Buddy Royd partner, as this was his cue. "Okay," Nick said, snapping his fingers before changing into his motorcycle form. The Red Buster got on his motorcycle and looked at his teammates. "I'm off, guys," he said to them. "Hit them hard, Red Buster," Midoriya said with words of encouragement. "We know you got this," Melissa said, giving him a thumbs up. "Right," Ren said before revving up Nick's engine and tearing down the plaza before turning onto a nearby street. Meanwhile, Chitos and her crew acted immediately as they knew something big was about to happen. "Have a drone camera follow him. He's about to do something and I got a feeling we don't want to miss it," Chitos ordered her assistants, as the assistant flying the drone camera sent the device to go after the Red Buster and film everything he was doing. Back in the city, the Vagless Megazord's rampage showed no signs of slowing down as the heroes and law enforcers were utterly helpless to stop even a single Megazord. The Red Buster tore down the road at breakneck speed while getting into position for his Buster vehicle approval, with the news drone camera flying above them to continue broadcasting for the world to see. He glanced up and gritted his teeth in frustration at the sight of the Shovel Zord almost reaching its destination towards Tokyo Tower to steal the Enetron there, along with the other Alpha and Beta Megazords wrecking the city apart. But when all hope seemed to be lost, the loud sound of an engine echoed across the streets, getting louder and closer by the second. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, to the entire world's surprise and bewilderment, a gigantic black and red race car, which was revealed to be the Buster vehicle CB-01, flew over the rooftop of a building and landed perfectly on the road without damaging the street while making its way to the Red Buster and Nick on auto-navigation mode. "That's our ride!" Nick hollered in excitement to see the CB-01. "Let's go!" "Right!" Ren shouted before moving toward the closest empty street at breakneck speed for a clear runway for his Buster vehicle. The Buster vehicle CB-01 suddenly appeared from around the concern of the street and was behind the Red Buster, with the CB-01 headlights flashing the signal, meaning it was ready for the pilot to enter the vehicle. With the Red Buster seeing the signal, he hits the brakes on Nick to slow down their acceleration while the CB-01 got close to them. Then the Buster vehicle CB-01 opened a small hatch in front of itself before sliding down a ramp on the road, which allowed the Red Buster to ride up backward on the ramp as he and Nick entered the giant vehicle right before the hatch closed up now that they were boarded. While inside the Buster vehicle, the Red Buster hopped off of his motorcycle with a backflip, allowing Nick to change back into his human form as the interior of the vehicle then converted into a cockpit. Soon the two got to their respective places, with Nick's head being placed in front of the cockpit while acting as the dashboard and main controls for the CB-01. The chair Ren was sitting in slid into place in front of the controls with the cockpit lights coming on and placed him into place with the door behind him closing shut. "You ready to do this, partner?" Nick eagerly asked with his face lit up on the dash as he spoke. Course I am. Let's do this. Ren replied while the boy twisted the dial on his morphin brace before the center button on the device. Let's driving. A voice from the morphin braces announced while connecting him and Nick to the CB-01 systems, with the Red Buster placing his hands on the steering wheel to take control of the vehicle, right before his visor digitally glowed green for a brief moment. Then suddenly outside the CB-01, the front grille opened up while releasing a burst of steam from each of its sides before revealing a cheetah head that caused the Buster vehicle to SWCH into the Buster machine CB-01, with the giant vehicle driving toward the Shovelzord at high speed as its engines roared while barreling down the road, propelled by large thrusters in its rear. This is definitely a lot cooler than watching it on the show. But a bit more complicated than I imagined. The Red Buster stated how incredible this was piloting a real-life mecha. I know this might seem overwhelming, but I promise it's a lot simpler than it looks, Nick said with a reassuring tone. If you say so. The Red Buster said as he took a tentative grip of Nick's motorcycle handles while charging at the Shovelzord lumbered onto the street ahead, and the Megazord looked to be a few meters away from Tokyo Tower. There the Megazord. And it looks like it's about to reach the Enetron. Ren looks used the guns to stop it. Nick suggested to his human partner. Got it, Ren said while pressing some buttons around the cockpit. The panels on either side of the Buster machine slid open to reveal turret guns. Just a few more seconds and, done. Nick said locking onto the enemy Megazord's position. We're locked on the enemy Megazord now. I'll handle targeting and keep an eye on our systems, you just focus on driving and shooting, okay? He said getting a nod from Ren. Right. The Red Buster said in agreement, as his fingers squeezed triggers on both control handles. Okay, let's light this sucker up. He shouted pushing down the triggers. The turrets aimed upward at the Shovelzord, then coughed out a rapid barrage of bullets and made direct contact with the Megazord's body while stopping its advance to Tokyo Tower. The projectiles sparked off Shovelzord's armor while being damaged by the attack and the vagless Megazord's full attention onto them. Looks like we pissed it off, Nick said as they saw the Shovelzord turn in their direction. That was the plan after all. But we're going to need a little bit more firepower to destroy that Megazord. The Red Buster said as Buster Machine CB-01 wasn't going to cut it. Then it's time for us to use the Megazord mode. Nick said with anticipation. Ren, look to your right. There's a digital keyboard interface, type in the passcode to change the CB-01 mode. He told his partner. The Red Buster glanced over his right side to the keyboard, before keying in the code needed to SWCH his Buster Machine mode. Then outside of the vehicle, the Buster Machine CB-01 headlights flashed again when the race car converted itself into a giant red humanoid robot with a piece of chest armor shaped like a cheetah's face and green eye flashing bright for a brief moment, as the Buster Machine transformed into the CB-01 Ace/Go Buster Ace. Seeing this made a great number of the whole world's jaws drop population from utter shock and disbelief to witness a giant race car turning into a giant humanoid mecha the same size as the vagless Megazords. Alright, now we're in business. Nick hollered in joy. Now punch it, Red Buster. Don't have to tell me twice. The Red Buster said while pressing a few more buttons on the top of his cockpit before revving the right control stick. Then the Go Buster Ace was propelled forward by the thrusters on its back, which made the Megazord slightly fly in the air and easily maneuver itself around the city at blazing speed while heading straight at the Shovelzord for a massive right hook to the face from above. The Shovelzord saw this attack coming and in response swung its massive shovel arm at the Go Buster Ace's punch, which caused both Megazord's attacks to be cancelled out to their equal force of attack power. Ren yelped in fright as his Go Buster Ace was pushed slightly back from the impact, but that didn't stop him as the boy continued his assault with the Go Buster Ace and the Shovelzord started exchanging blows with one another. The fight between the Go Buster Ace and the Shovel Zord pretty much made the news go up in flames, with hundreds of reporters broadcasting as best they could at what they were seeing, and the internet erupted with tons of comments that could possibly break the internet. Back in the Tokyo Tower Plaza grounds, the other two Go Busters were sharing in awe at the awesome-looking giant race car turning into a giant robot, and the MLA members were looking at the giant mecha in shock and were surprised by its transformation. "Someone pinch me, 'cause I must be dreaming right now," the Yellow Buster said with an awestruck tone at the magnificent sight of the Go Busters Megazord. Even known she already heard about this from her other teammates, seeing it in person was a different story, as the girl had never seen such an advanced work of technicality before in her life. "This is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life," the Blue Buster said with joy as he remembered this from what Zero showed him back at his house. He then looked over at his teammate before speaking up to her. "Hey, Melissa," he said, getting her to turn his way. "Just so you know, we get our own Buster vehicles as well," he told her, making the girl's eyes nearly pop out in surprise from behind her helmet. "Seriously?" Melissa yelled in shock before calming herself down. "That's awesome. I can't wait to see mine." "Yeah, me too," Midoriya said before they drew their attention back to the fight ahead. "But I wish we could do more than just stand here and watch," he said with a frown and frustration that their friend was doing all the fighting for them. "I know what you mean. While Ren and Nick are taking care of that Megazord," Melissa said sadly, as the Go Buster Ace couldn't deal with all the other vagless Megazords at once. "If only we had our Buster vehicles here too." As if answering the Blue and Yellow Buster's words, the sounds of engine and helicopter blades could be heard echoing far from the distance, catching their attention, with the Go Busters and reporters turning their heads to the noise. "What is that noise?" one of Chitosa's assistants asked, looking up and around to pinpoint the location of the sound. Then, for the second time today, the whole world was thrown again for another surprise at the appearance of a massive blue gorilla-themed semi-truck and a gigantic yellow rabbit-themed helicopter making their way to the Blue and Yellow Busters' location, which were the Buster Machine GT-02 and the Buster Machine RH-03. "Are those?" Melissa said, gasping in surprise. "It's our Buster machines," Midoriya said, overcome with excitement. This did not go unnoticed by the people near them, as they overheard what the two teens said. "Wait. There's more of those things," a female assistant of Chitose asked in shock to hear that those vehicles belonged to them. Before they could reply back, they were greeted by the two titanic machines arriving near in front of the plaza. "You've called." USADA called out from inside the Buster Machine RH-03 hovering above the group, which surprised them. "Izuku. We're here to help," Gorosaki said to his partner from inside the Buster Machine GT-02. "Gorosaki. USADA." Midoriya yelled in both surprise and confusion. "How are you both here and with your Buster machines?" "You can thank Zero for that one. He figured that one Buster machine wasn't going to be enough for this mess." Gorosaki explained, much to their surprise. "Now hurry up and get in, you two. We got a city to save, Rabbit," USADA said before reminding them that they still had a job to do. Although the machines were beyond mighty and intimidating, they still gave Melissa and Midoriya a bit of a confidence boost, with the two glancing at each other way. "Let's do this, Melissa," Midoriya said to her in a serious manner. "Right," Melissa replied back with a nod. Then the two Busters entered their respective vehicles, with the Blue Buster running towards the Buster Machine GT-02 on the road and the Yellow Buster jumping high toward the Buster Machine RH-03, before boarding their mechas. "Whoa, this thing is awesome!" Midoriya exclaimed while sliding into the driver's seat of his cockpit and scanning the various instruments and widgets. He then turned his attention to Gorosaki, acting as a dashboard and control console for the Buster Machine. "You ready to rock the Vagless, bud?" he asked with his hands on Gorosaki's steering wheel face. "Yeah, let's do it," Gorosaki explained with eagerness. I still can't get over how advanced this machine is. Melissa said, gasping in awe and curiosity while taking a few seconds to familiarize herself with the cockpit. So you're my new human partner then, Yusada said, quickly getting Melissa's attention on him and startling her a bit, as he was a control console for the Buster machine. The name's Yusada Lettuce, your buddy roid partner. Nice to finally meet you. He greeted the girl. Oh no, the pleasure is all mine, Melissa said, regaining her composure and feeling a little awkward. I'm Melissa Shield. I look forward to working alongside you, Yusada. She stated with a smile and nod. Now let's show them what we can do. The girl hollered and then gripped the control sticks formed from Yusada's ears tightly. Roger, Rabbit. Yusada replied, already liking Melissa. Once the two Go-Busters were set, they took off in different directions to enter the battlefield to face the other enemy Megazords around the city and assist the CB-01 Ace, with Midoriya gripping the steering wheel and stepping on the gas as the Buster Machine GT-02's engines roared as they came to life and the vehicle barreled towards the enemy, and Melissa pushes the control sticks upward to wield the Buster Machine RH-03 forward as they flew towards the Vaglis, while leaving the other spectators there in a state of stupor, not knowing what to think or how to feel. Meanwhile, at the same time, the symbol of peace and the rabbit heroine were seen fighting against one of the Vaglis Megazord. The battle with Megazord sure was a major drag, as All Might and Miruko weren't enjoying one bit of it. SHT, we're barely doing anything to this Megazord. All Might shouted, already having wasted a good chunk of time trying to take down one of these damned machines when there were still others to deal with. Tell me something I don't know. Miruko replied in frustration, as even she knew when to pick her battles wisely. Hell, do we even have anything to beat these DMN robots? But before All Might could answer, the Megazord Beta swung its arm at the two heroes, with them moving out of the way in time as the building they were standing on was destroyed by the Megazord. Then All Might and Miruko went off once more on the offensive at the Titanic machine, while using some destroyed buildings to bound off like very aggressive fleas. Eats this, you big F-er. Miruko yelled out before she blindsided the Megazord Beta with a hard to the back of its head. But the attack, like pretty much everything they've had been throwing at the Megazord, barely did much to the robot, with the Megazord Beta turning its whole body to backhand strike Miruko's against her left side. Oh, SHT. Miruko cursed in horror as she was unable to avoid this attack in midair. But when things looked bad for the rabbit heroine, All Might leaped in at blazing speed to push Miruko out of the way in the nick of time and took the hit for her, as the man was sent away like a meteor into the concrete, digging a trench with his body for a solid 40 meters before stopping. All Might. Miruko screamed out the man's name in great concern before rushing to the location he was sent to. DMN, thank God for adrenaline. All Might said to himself, coughing a handful of BLD and spit, his body already tiring faster than he hoped for. Then Miruko landed next to him before speaking up. You good big guy? Miruko asked the #1 hero. I'm fine, but probably gonna feel like CRP tomorrow. All Might said as that damn thing had a punch, leaving his whole left side throbbing in pain, and making his damned wound act up. We need a new approach here, Miruko. Because brute force isn't working. He stated before standing back up. Then what do you suggest we do to take down this giant BSTRD? Miruko asked, suggesting for any ideas that would help them here. The Megazord Beta soon found the two heroes and was charging up a laser beam from its eyes to attack the heroes, with All Might and Miruko, who were ready to respond to the attack. But before they could act, the two heroes picked up the sound of a helicopter coming their way and saw the Buster Machine RH-03 flying towards the Megazord Beta at high speed, then began to open fire a barrage of bullets from the twin turrets underneath the Buster Machine, that stops the Vaglis assault and damage it with sparks coming off the robots' bodies, right before the RH-03 quickly flew off to help where else it is needed to prove support fire on the other enemy Megazord to distract it. Them long enough for people to evacuating to safety. What in the hell? Miruko said out loud with a stunned expression, along with All Might as the Megazord Beta forgot about the two heroes with its attention was now on the rabbit-like helicopter. Then they begin to notice the other Buster machines doing their job too, with the Go Buster Ace and the Shovel Zord fighting each other in combat, with the Buster Machine GT-02 slamming through Derby and any other large piece of objects away from the road to clear a path to help rescue the heroes, civilians, soldiers, and anyone else in a variety by carrying them away in the vehicle's cargo bay, while the Buster Machine RH-03 travel around the city in the sky and fired missiles onto any Megazord it came across. The two pro-heroes were still in absolute shock and awe at the appearance of the Go Busters Buster vehicles, as they remembered seeing similar things from the memories when they dealt with giant monsters' attacks. Holy stinking, Super CRP. All Might said for most of his part at the sight of the giant mechas, and couldn't help the gigantic dumb grin on his face, as his astonishment soon gave way to childish delight and pride for these young warriors of justice. Ha ha ha, it seems that the Go Busters already have this covered, Miruko, he said, turning to the woman who was also grinning madly from the sight of the Buster machines. Took those brats long enough. Another minute and I would have kicked their asses for making us wait. Miruko said in her usual aggressive tone, but not in a bad way. We should leave the rest to you Go Busters then. Give them hell. All Might suggested to her with him then jumped a vagless Megazord's shoulder. Fine. But I want a fight with them with this is over. Miruko shouted in agreement while following behind the number one hero, and landed on the vagless Megazord's other shoulder. The two top 10 heroes then jumped once again with all their might, before the two both gave the giant robot a massive smash uppercut and Luna upper kick to the chin that stunned the Megazord Beta movements for a while, and propelling themselves out of the battlefield to focus on evacuation anyone still in the area to safety. Back with the Red Buster, he was still exchanging blows with the Shovel Zord who caught a powerful kick in the sternum, but Go Buster Ace didn't let up in his assault, following each punch and kick up with another. The Shovel Zord backed up from the hits he was taking from the Go Buster Ace. There. You like that? Have some more. The Red Buster yelled, making the Go Buster Ace punching the enemy Megazord again as much as he could. Go Buster Ace punched the Shovel Zord back 3 more times, with vagless Megazord backing up from the hits he was taking. Not bad, Red Buster. Keep it up. Nick cheered his partners on, as it was evident that the CB-01 Ace was stronger than the Megazord. But the Shovel Zord finally had enough before retaliating by launching a volley of missiles at its attacker. SHT. The Red Buster cursed before willing the CB-01 Ace out of the way with its thrusters to evade the projectiles. The Go Buster Ace maneuvers through the air while dodging the Megazord's missiles, as they returned fire with their own missiles, but then panicked and they saw one of the Shovel Zord's missiles strike an occupied office building behind him. Oh, no. Nick shouted as the explosion from the stray missile made the building unstable with it beginning to collapse. Run, we got to do something. I'm on it. The Red Buster said while turning the Go Buster Ace around, then jetted over to the collapsing building and grabbed a hold of the top section just as it started to slide downward. The Go Buster Ace kept the building stable before getting it back to stabilized position while holding the structure together long enough for welding lasers on its waist to adhere the two halves together. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it would keep for now. Phew. Nick sighed in relief. That was a close one. Yeah, not bad. Both Ren and Nick heard Midoriya's voice and turned to their left side of the cockpit to see him on the holographic monitor screen while using this as a means of communication. Nice, save there. Yeah, you ain't doing half bad out there. Melissa admitted through the right holographic monitor screen, getting both of their attention. Midoriya, Melissa. Ren said to them with looks of surprise to see them in their Buster machines before smiling happily at the sight. I see that you two got your Buster machines as well. Yeah, Zero hooked us up real good for this. Melissa said with a chuckle while flying around in her Buster machine. And, we are having the time of our lives. Midoriya exclaimed with excitement as just picked up another group of people. I can see that. Anyway, let's start cleaning house, guys. Ren declared as he saw the shovel zord charge at him again. Roger. Midoriya and Melissa said with them getting to work. Okay, time for some payback, Ren said while running at the shovel zord, who attacked the CB-01 ace with another barrage of missiles. Once he finished talking with his friends, the blue buster made his way to a clear area in the street before stopping the GT-02 and opening the hitch to a cargo bay as people inside exited the vehicle. This is your stop and thanks you riding the Blue Buster Express. The Blue Buster's voice booms out through a set of speakers on the Buster machine before closing the cargo bay hitch and driving off with people watching the vehicle leave. What in the world is even going on? Kamui Woods began to wonder if he was hallucinating right now. The pro-heroes, law enforcement, and soldiers couldn't believe that they were watching gigantic vehicles emerge from out of nowhere, and more bewildered when they fought those killer robots. They were even more bewildered and the Go-Busters entered the giant vehicle and pulled at them without any issues. They thought that these mysterious giant things were robots, but they were actually vehicles that could be ridden on. What is going on? Mount Lady asked while regaining consciousness, as she groaned in pain and suffering from a headache. I don't know. Kamui Woods answered before staring at her. But are you okay? You took a pretty nasty hit from one of those things, he asked her in concern. I think I might have a concussion, but I'll live. Mount Lady said, shaking her head a bit to clear her thoughts. Just what happened after I passed out? Well, those villains were overwhelming us until the Go-Busters showed up in giant vehicles and are taking care of the threat, Backdraft explained to her. Wait, what? Mount Lady shouted with her eyes wide before frantically turning her head to see three large machines fight the Megazords without much difficulty, until her and the other heroes. What in the hell are those things? I don't know. Death Arms answered honestly as he still couldn't wrap his head around what was happening. But if they can somehow stop those villains, then let them. Even if they are just vigilantes. Well, screw that. Mount Lady said while attempting to get back up. I need to help them. Help them? After seeing that? One of the heroes pointed at the giant mechanical vehicles. It's the job of a hero, after all. Mount Lady answered reluctantly, as she was about to activate her quirk. Kamui Woods used his quirk to restrain her. Don't be reckless, rookie. You barely survived fighting one of those monsters. Let those vigilantes handle it, somehow. He stated to her. He's right, we're out of our league here, Backdraft said in agreement. This is their fight now. The pro-heroes there who heard what Backdraft said felt powerless to do anything while those kids risked their lives to fight those villains, even though it was their job and responsibility as heroes to deal with trouble like this. As much as they wanted to help the Go-Busters, they knew they'd only get in their way and left this matter to Super Sentai. Meanwhile, the Blue Buster drove his GT-02 down the street and hoped to find more endangered people. Izuku, the scanners don't pick up anyone else in the area, Gorosaki informed. Which means we go everyone out in time, Midoriya said in a tone of relief. Now let go take care of those Megazords. He stated before slamming his foot down on the accelerator to increase his vehicle speed. Then the Buster Machine GT-02 came across two Megazord Alpha whose backs were turned from them, with the Blue Buster speeding towards the vagless Megazords and slammed into one of their legs, staggering it and crashing right into the other Megazord, drawing their attention away to the GT-02. Both Megazord Alpha eyes glow as they open fire on the GT-02 with a barrage of bullets the attack Zord threw his way. Midoriya veered off to the left to avoid the attack, then swerved all over the road to dodge the subsequent barrage of bullets from the vagless Megazords as some of the Megazords' attacks landed with his mecha taking some damage. In response, the Buster Machine GT-02 reveals two turret guns on top of the cargo bay and fires blue laser beams at the two Vagless Megazords, which damages them a bit and giving the GT-02 some breathing room. Gorosaki, we're going to need some more firepower. You beat those things. Got any suggestions, cause I could really use it right about now? Blue Buster questioned his partner while avoiding the attacks. Let's use animal mode to SWCH to GT-02 Gorilla, Gorosaki explained to him about changing modes. Type the passcode into the digital keyboard on your right, and you'll be able to access Buster animal mode. He said with his human partner nodding. Worth a shot. The Blue Buster shouted while driving at the enemy at high speed. Animal mode. He shouted while typing the passcode into the keypad as the cockpit shook and rattled. Outside of the vehicle, the Buster Machine GT-02 headlights flashed when the semi-truck converted itself into a huge robotic gorilla with its eyes flashing bright yellow for a brief moment and nostrils releasing steam while running on all fours, as the Buster Machine transformed into the Buster Animal GT-02 Gorilla. Seeing this surprised and dumbstruck a lot of people watching as they saw another one of those vehicles changing forms. Yeah. Now, this is more like it. The Blue Buster hollered in excitement at the vehicle's transformation. Oh, what do we do? This will be our first battle together. I'm so nervous. Gorosaki said with a worried tone. Don't worry, Gorosaki. We got this. The Blue Buster said while gripping the control and charging forward at the Megazords. The two Megazord Alpha were still firing at the Buster Animal GT-02 Gorilla with the robotic gorilla tanking attacks without slowing down before the Blue Buster got close enough. Then willed the GT-02 Gorilla to strike one of the Megazords with its right fist once it was in range to make the Megazord Alpha stagger backward a few feet away, then punched the other Megazord with a left hook. But the Megazord Alpha was quick enough to evade the punch and retaliated by kicking the mechanical ape in the chest, for Blue Buster and Gorosaki to yelp in surprise, and the Buster Animal GT-02 Gorilla lost its footing for a moment before righting itself to counterstrike with enough force that the Vagless Megazord topples over on the ground. Then the other Megazord Alpha came right back at GT-02 Gorilla for an attack, as the Buster Animal turned to face its foe and was ready to strike. Eat this. The Blue Buster said while pressing a few buttons in his cockpit before moving his hand to a lever to turn a knob on it and pushing down a button. The Buster Animal GT-02 Gorilla then fired a volley of banana-shaped missiles that soared out of twin launchers mounted on the gorilla hauler's shoulders, as the bananas split open and the peels fell away, leaving their payload to strike the Megazord's armor and explode on impact with the evil robot taking major damage. And to add insult to injury, the Megazord Alpha accidentally stepped on the banana peels before slipping backward on the floor. Ha! Gorosaki laughed with the GT-02 Gorilla slamming its fists on his chest like a real gorilla. Alright. Alright. Let not celebrity just yet. We still got other Megazords to take care of. The Blue Buster remained his robotic partner. Alright. Gorosaki said back, as they saw the two Megazords standing back up. Izuku, this is the perfect window for you to finish the Megazords off. Right. Time to bring the pain. The Blue Buster shouted, hitting another button on the dashboard. The Buster Animal GT-02 Gorilla shoulder-mounted speakers gorilla then fired 4 blue sound waves that hit the two Vagless Megazords, stumbling backward with their bodies sparking electricity due to the damage. Then the two Megazord Alpha soon stopped moving and fell backward towards the ground before erupting into a massive explosion that took them out. Yes, we got them. The Blue Buster exclaimed, pumping his fists before looking at his buddy Royd. 2 down, only 5 more to go, buddy. Yeah, now let's go help the others next. Gorosaki said back with a joyful tone. Roger that. The Blue Buster said in agreement before placing his hands back on the steering wheel and having his GT-02 Gorilla SWCH back to the Buster Machine GT-02, then moved toward his friend's direction. Meanwhile, at the same time, the yellow buster used her control sticks and maneuvered the buster machine RH-03 over the city to cover more ground faster than her two teammates. I think I'm starting to get the hang of this thing, the yellow buster said as it was getting easier to pilot her buster machine. Yeah, you're handling this buster machine like a pro even though it's your first time. Just remember to take it nice and easy, Rabbit. Usada exclaimed to her. Right. Melissa replied with a nod. The yellow buster then spotted two Megazord Beta on her monitor screen standing next to one another near a wrecked structure and flew towards them for an assault from above. She began to open fire at the Megazord with their bodies suffering damage as tons of sparks flew off. This only served to anger the two Vagless Megazords, with them retaliating back by shooting laser beams and missiles to shoot down the RH-03. Whoa! The yellow buster yelped while moving the Usada's ears to the helicopter, evading the laser beams and missiles, as the girl also pulled the triggers to return fire at the enemies. Despite the RH-03 aerial assault from the sky, it didn't have enough firepower to destroy the Megazord Betas, as she veered the buster machine to the left to avoid it before firing a barrage of missiles at the enemy robots that made the Megazord stumble back a few steps and stunned them. Melissa, our attacks are barely phasing them and we won't be able to outmaneuver their attacks forever. Usada informed the girl with an urgent tone. Then what you suppose we do? Because I'm open to suggestions right now. The yellow buster asked her buddy Royd partner. Now would be a good time to use animal mode to change the RH-03 into its animal form, Usada told her, with Melissa paying attention to what he was saying. There is a digital keyboard on the right side of the cockpit. Type in the passcode I'll tell you to into the console's keypad, and then we can finish these guys off for good. I got it, Usada. The yellow buster said with a nod before keying in the code Usada told her. Animal mode. Outside of the vehicle, the buster machine RH-03 descended down to street level when the rabbit-themed helicopter converted itself into a massive robotic rabbit and began hopping through the city streets, as the buster machine transformed into the buster animal RH-03 rabbit. Once again everyone was shocked to see another massive vehicle transform into a robotic animal. This cannot get any cooler. The yellow buster yelled out with excitement to see another one of the RH-03 forms. Let's end this together, Usada, she declared while readjusting her grip on the controls. Roger, Rabbit. Usada exclaimed, fully on board. The buster animal RH-03 rabbit dashed down the street towards the Megazord Betas, with them firing their weapons at her. But the yellow buster willed the RH-03 rabbit to leap high into the air in time to both dodge the enemy assault and also retaliate back, by quickly hopping back and forth at the two Vagless Megazords with flurry kicks, a headbutt, and slashing its bladed ears that deal severe damage before hopping away from the Megazords. Nice going, Melissa. Now let's attack them from underground. Usada encouraged her. Yeah, down the rabbit hole we go. The yellow buster shouted while pushing the controls forward on Usada's ears. Then the blades on top of the RH-03 rabbit head began to spin before using them to dig a hole underground like a rabbit, as the two Megazords looked confused at what just happened and started searching for the buster animal. The buster animal RH-03 rabbit soon stuck its head out of the ground a few yards away from the Megazord Betas who hadn't noticed them yet. Hee, here's our chance, Usada stated in a sneaky manner. The RH-03 rabbit immediately jumped out of the hole and towards the two Megazords, while spinning with its back turned to them. Have a taste of this. The yellow buster declared while looking back and pushing the controls forward. The buster animal RH-03 rabbit then strikes both of the Vagless Megazords from behind with a back kick that sends them flying in the air before the RH-03 turns around to scratch its ears with its right leg, as the kick from the buster animal launches the Megazords a good distance. The Megazord Betas soon landed on the ground hard in different parts of the city without damaging the streets, as they lay there on the floor with their armor began to spark from receiving massive damage before exploding to death. Alright. The yellow buster cheered in celebration to see the vagless megazords blowing up on her monitor screen. Nice work, Usada. Ah, it was nothing, Usada said, almost blushing in embarrassment from the praise. Anyway, our job isn't over yet until every last megazord is destroyed, Rabbit. The yellow buster said, letting out a hum, before charging the RH-03 Rabbit back into the buster machine RH-03 and moving on to the next vagless megazord. Meanwhile, back at the Chitosa's crew were still in a state of shock from what transpired before them, as Chitos was in deep thought. No way. Chitos muttered under her breath, with her crew being speechless at the sight of the titanic machines clashing with each other. Who in the hell are these kids? First, there's this red buster who just showed up out of nowhere with technically beyond anything our world has seen, then a quirkless boy from one of the schools under our control becoming a go-buster, now the daughter of David Shield is one as well, the attack on the city by the Vagless, and now this. She thought as she observed the giant robots battle from afar. Just what is happening to our world right now? She muttered to herself quietly as she couldn't come up with an answer to her question. And she wasn't the only one having similar thoughts about the grand battle before them, as the heroes, law enforcement, and the reporters already there in the area along with Japan and the rest of the world's population watching this were dumbfounded and bewildered by what they were seeing. For all the years has there been heroism and quirks, the people of this world have never seen anything absurd like this before in their lives. 3 giant vehicles came out of nowhere, that have the ability to transform robotic animal mechas, while successfully striking the vagless megazords without any problems. Although the 3 machines were beyond mighty and intimidating, the whole world population was amazed at these 3 kids piloting giant mechas with ease. On one hand, they were relieved to know that vagless megazords were being dealt with, but on the other hand, they were shocked to witness such a display of power from the buster machines and piloting skill from the go-busters. They began to wonder where these advanced machines came from and who built them, until they stared back at the last 3 remaining megazords. Meanwhile, at the same time, the other 2 buster machines were fighting the megazords. The shovelzord continued to bombard the go-buster ace with missiles, with the CB-01 ace avoiding the assault as best it could while making sure it didn't hit more buildings. We won't win if we keep fighting the megazord in the distance. We'll need to get in close. The red buster stated to his buddy Royd partner while pressing a few buttons around his cockpit. Nick, I need you to calculate a route for the target. He asked his buddy Royd partner for help. Way ahead of you, Red Buster. Nick stated while running some calculations, before a new window popped up on the Go-Buster Ace's cockpit screen, displaying a carefully mapped out route that would allow them to flank the enemy. Okay, I've plotted a course to the shovelzord, along with the other 2 megazords in the vicinity. Now punch it. On it. The red buster stated before willing the Go-Buster Ace forward to the right, and the humanoid mecha tumbled down the right side of the street and navigated the planned route. The shovelzord continued firing more missiles, along with the megazord Alpha and Beta joining in on the assault by firing laser beams and gunfire when they noticed the humanoid mecha, as the Go-Buster Ace charged blazingly onward toward the 3 megazords while avoiding their bombarded with exploding happening around the CB-01 Ace. We need more speed. Red Buster, use the Ace's animal mode. Nick exclaimed to Ren. Right. The red buster said with a nod before keying in the code on the keypad. Animal mode. He declared with his mecha that mechanical clicks echoed throughout the cockpit. Outside of the vehicle, the Go-Buster Ace then converted itself into a giant robotic cheetah while running on all 4s, as the megazord transformed into the buster animal CB-01 cheetah. Once again people were awestruck by one another of the CB-01 transformation. The buster animal CB-01 cheetah uses its surroundings in the area and quick speed to weave through the buildings while evading the vagless megazord's missiles, lasers, and gunfire with ease thanks to the route Nick provided for him. Not this is what I call fast. Ren commented while steering the buster animal CB-01 cheetah around a nearby corner, then made another turn and dashed toward the megazord Alpha first. You're mine now. He then willed the CB-01 cheetah forward at his foe. The CB-01 cheetah roared as it pounced on its prey, latching onto the Megazord Alpha back with its claws. The buster animal CB-01 cheetah then bit at the vagless Megazord neck, severing wires and damaging its armor before pushing itself off of the Megazord Alpha's back and firing laser blasts from its shoulders to deal more damage. When the CB-01 cheetah landed on the ground, it ran straight for its next target while the Megazord Alpha's body sparked violently before falling sideways onto the street and exploding. The Megazord Beta then noticed the buster animal CB-01 cheetah charging at it and began to retaliate with missiles aimed at the robotic cheetah, but the CB-01 cheetah countered by shooting down the missiles with its lasers while continuing its advancement. "You're next, buddy," Nick exclaimed with the CB-01 cheetah jumped on top of the Megazord Beta. Then the buster animal wasted no time in biting the missile pods on the Megazord back to make it unstable, till the CB-01 cheetah leaped backward off of the vagless Megazord and the missiles in its body exploded along with the Megazord Beta taking serious damage. While in the air, the buster animal CB-01 cheetah transforms back into the Go Buster Ace before drawing out a sword in mid-transformation to finish the Megazord for good. The red buster brought up his left arm to twist the dial on his morphin brace to make it flash green briefly, before pressing the center button on the device to make flash red for a brief moment. "It's time for Buster," a voice from the morphin brace announced, while the red buster's visor digitally glowed green briefly. The red buster then grabbed a hold of the control sticks and both of his arms glowed bright green, with him activating the thrusters on the Go Buster Ace's back and forcing the humanoid mecha to charge forward straight towards the stunned Megazord Beta at high speed with CB-01 Ace eyes flashing green for a brief moment. "Aya!" The red buster shouted as the Go Buster Ace dove toward the Megazord Beta with its blade emitting green energy before slashing horizontally through the Megazord's armor. The Go Buster Ace lands right behind the vagless Megazord, causing the floor to break apart from the humanoid mecha weight, as the Megazord Beta then explodes into obliteration. "That's the last of the regular Megazords," Ren said, seeing that Midoriya and Melissa had already taken care of the others. "Already, time to deal with the final boss," Nick shouted in anticipation. With the Shovel Zord being the last of the vagless Megazord, it was enraged by the Go Busters meddling in its mission to steal the Enetron and then attack Counterstrike at the Go Buster Ace with a barrage of missiles. The CB-01 Ace fought off the barrage with its sword while also dodging the missiles as best it could, before the Shovel Zord was hit with rapid gunfire and blue laser beams as sparks flew off its armor and stunning the machine. This surprised Ren and Nick as they turned to see the Buster Machine GT-02 and Buster Machine RH-03 heading their way before they regrouped with each other as their Buster vehicles stood next to one another. "Hope you two left some fun for the rest of us," Midoriya said through his monitor screen with a smile. "It's about time you guys showed up," Ren said jokingly. "Yeah, what took you all so long?" Nick said, joining in the fun. "Sorry, we were late, Ren and Nick. There was a traffic problem." Melissa quipped out a joke of her own. "Yeah, traffic was crazy, Rabbit," Yusada commented. "I bet it was," Gorisaki said in curiosity. "Anyway, there is still one more Megazord for us to beat," Midoriya said, pointing out. "So how do we deal with it?" Melissa asked Ren. The Red Buster thought it over for a moment before an interesting idea came to mind. "I know the perfect way to finish this fight," Ren said to his team with a mad grin on his face. "Really? What is it?" Midoriya asked first. "Okay, here's what we do," Ren said with the others listening carefully. "Let's bring all of our Buster vehicles to form the Go Buster O," he said with excitement. After going over the plan with his teammates, the two Buster and Buddy Roids being shocked was an understatement. "Are you for real? We can seriously do something like that?" The yellow Buster asked in utter shock at the Ren just told them. "Yeah, I mean other Sentai teams were able to do it too." The Blue Buster said with equal shock and excitement for the plan. But this will be the first time you all tried this and without any training, Gorosaki said with a tone of worry and dough for the plan. We're doing this in real time. Yusada questioned. Are you sure? They can do it. Ren won't fail them at a time like this one. Nick said with absolute faith in his partner. All of our Buster vehicles should have enough Enetron to pull it off. The Red Buster told his friends. So you guys with me or what? You don't need to ask, because I'm in all the way. The Blue Buster said with anticipation. Me too. This is going to be so awesome. The Yellow Buster shouted like a happy schoolgirl. Okay, let's do this, go Busters. The Red Buster told his team with a holler. Combine operation. Roger. The Blue and Yellow Busters shouted together as well. The Go Buster Ace struck a pose before firing a volley of missiles from its shoulders, as the rockets hit the Shovel Zord, which stunned the Vagless Megazord and gave Midoriya and Melissa the time they needed to type in the commands into their own Buster vehicles. Then the Buster Machine GT-02 and Buster Machine RH-03 split into several pieces, which then flew towards the Go Buster Ace. I never thought I'd get to do something like this. The Red Buster thought to himself, watching as his teammates' Buster vehicles orbited around his Go Buster Ace, as a digitally green force field surrounded them. Coming to this world was completely unexpected for me, and despite all its flaws, there are people here worth fighting for. I even have Midoriya and Melissa help too. He mentally thought in determination. The Shovel Zord aimed at the three Buster vehicles and retaliated with their own missiles. However, the projectiles were blocked by the digitally green force field and bounced back at the Shovel Zord that struck it instead. I trust you too, just like you trusted me. The Red Buster said to his teammates, making both Midoriya and Melissa smile at his touching words, before he keyed in the combination code, causing the Go Buster Ace to begin transforming. Takumi Gatai. The Go Buster Ace's arms, shoulders, and feet folded up, and its chest piece flew off. This allowed the GT-02 and RH-03 fragments to attach themselves to the CB-01, while forming new arms and feet, respectively. Spare parts from the Go Buster Ace attached to its back and chest, and its visor split open and folded back to the sides of its face as a new helmet slotted onto it to complete the transformation. Then suddenly a new sword materialized in midair, as pieces of the RH-03 attached themselves to the hilt, with the Megazord grabbing the blade in its right hand. Meanwhile, inside the Megazord, the three Go Busters' cockpits moved to the head of the giant robot to link them to the systems. Go Buster O. The three Go Busters all shouted together in sync, while their Megazord struck a triumphant pose. Ready? Go! From every corner of the world, people were stunned, dumbfounded, confounded, bewildered, flabbergasted, astounded, stupefied, dumbstruck, flummoxed, and every other existing synonym due to the bizarre transformation. They never thought that technology like that even existed, as even pro-heroes, law enforcement, soldiers, and anyone else present looked in absolute shock and awe at the massive humanoid robot those machines just combined into. None of them expected them to combine into one giant mechanical humanoid, and it certainly was not what most people had in mind when they saw those machines appear. Hell, even Mount Lady felt tiny in comparison, that thing doubling her size. Her quirk was essentially inferior to the monster and the robot. Holy! Backdraft began to curse. SHT Death Arms finishing the sentence. Kamui Woods remained silent with his eyeballs popping out of his skull. What is that? One of the people asked in confusion and curiosity. You have got to be kidding me. Mount Lady answered, as her eyes were filled with envy due to the massive size of the Go Buster O. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Gang Orca and his sidekicks along with Edge Shot, Gunhead, and Crimson Riot looked at the sight of the Go Buster O in disbelief. Gang Orca, am I hallucinating, or did they just combat those things into one? Edge Shot asked with bug eyes stammered out. Yeah, they did, Gang Orca responded with a similar expression. Those kids are going make us go crazy with all of this stuff they're doing at this rate. Crimson Riot muttered in shock. Yikes, Gunhead said under her breath. Musudafu City evening. Meanwhile, back to the action, the Go Buster O stood ready and waiting to face down with the Shovel Zord, as the Go Busters were astonished by their Megazord. Yes. We freaking pulled it off. The Red Buster said, pumping his fist in joy. And on your first try too. Nice going. Nick praised them on an excellent job. Oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. The Yellow Buster said, squealing in utter excitement. If you're already impressed by this, then wait till you see the other Megazord's formations. Usada said, snickering. This Megazord feels so powerful. The Blue Buster exclaimed in an awestruck tone. All systems are ready to go. Gorisaki said as the Megazord was ready for action. Okay, let's do this one together. The Red Buster declared with the Shovel Zord recovering from its own attack. Roger. They all replied back seriously and got ready for the final showdown. The Shovel Zord begins to shot more missiles at them, but the Go Buster O raised its left arm in response to form an energy shield from the Megazord's arm blades to block all the missiles aimed at it. The Vagless Megazord wasn't done just yet as it advanced forward to strike the Go Buster O with its shovel arm, and once again the Go Buster O uses its left arm energy shield to not only block the enemy's attack but also pushing the Shovel Zord back by swiftly swinging its sword straight down the Vagless Megazord's body that makes it take a few steps backwards. Enetron interlock. The Yellow Buster shouted, before flipping a few switches to the right of her and watching a graphic on her screen that depicted their sword filling with Enetron. The Go Buster O then raised its sword up as the blade's hilt started to glow bright green. Boosting output. The Blue Buster replied, while pulling a lever in his cockpit to speed up the charge. 50%, 60, 70, 80, 90, the boy counted the charging out on a graphic screen in his cockpit, while the other two Go Busters waited patiently as the Megazord's blade was slowly powering up. 100%. He announced that the Megazord's sword was fully charged. Once their sword was fully charged, the Go Buster O raised its weapon in the air as the sword was engulfed in a bright green light, and then blue sound waves of energy shot out of its knees and shins, capturing the Shovel Zord in a giant blue energy bubble that restrict its movements. Dimension crash. The Red Buster shouted while bringing up his left arm to the side and twisting the dial on his Morphin brace, then pressing the center button on the device. It's time for Buster. A voice from the Morphin brace announced, while the device flashes red for a brief moment before gripping his controls again. Then a giant version of the Go Buster's logo that was bright green logo appears behind the Megazord, as the Go Buster O charges forward to swing its blade to unleash a powerful diagonal energy slash to its helpless foes, and the energy bubble the Shovel Zord were trapped in rippled as the attack struck it. The Go Buster O skid on the city street to come to a halt once it passed the Vagless Megazord, and the Shovel Zord robotic body was discharging tons of electricity before going completely limp and silent. Then the Shovel Zord fell to the ground and erupted in a massive explosion behind the Go Buster O with it proudly strikes a victory pose. Shutdown complete. Ren declared at the Shovel Zord complete destruction. As the sun set over the city on the horizon, many having practically gone silent as had militaries and corporations across the globe watching this match as nearly every single jaw hung open and every single eye widened. Even some of the other reporters and their teams who were able to catch some pretty mediocre footage of the fight were left speechless. Eliminating such a threat was not something simple or easy to achieve, but three quirkless teenagers had done it so effortlessly that it was almost impossible to believe. The atmosphere was charged with awe and a touch of fear at the magnitude of the power the Go Busters had demonstrated at that very moment in front of the entire world. Once the battle was over, the three Go Busters leaned back in their chairs, as they took their helmets off and taking cleansing breaths as their victory set in. They see that the city was rendered silent, the fighting had finally ended, and the sounds of sirens were the only sounds one could hear. It's over. All the Vagless and their megazords are destroyed before they can take the Enetron. Midoriya exclaimed, in disbelief at what they accomplished here today. We won. We saved the city. He said happily while pumping his fists. Yeah. We did it. Melissa shouted joyfully while hopping up and down from her seat and pumping her fists in excitement. We're heroes. I am so proud of you, Izuku. You've made a fine blue buster just like Ryuji. Gorosaki said to him. Thanks, Gorosaki, Midoriya said with a proud smile, as he was finally the hero he dreamed of being. Not bad for your first battle, Melissa, but you still have a long way to go if you want to be as good as Yoko, Yusada said to her. Then I'll be sure to live up to her expectations. Melissa happily said with a giggle. That was awesome, Ren. The way you fight and lead your teams reminds me so much of Hiromu. Nick said to him with a proud tone. With you and the others here, we can fight the Vagless. I'm sure of it. Yes, we will fight to defend this world from any evil that threatens it and win, Ren said with a look of determination on his face, as he then cracked a smile. I swear it. Then completely out of nowhere, the Go Busters begin to notice the cheering voices of men, women, and children from around them. They looked from their monitors and spotted tons of people from different nationalities and ethnicities. Many Americans, Asians, and other nationalities of many backgrounds were cheering. Many children were jumping for joy. All of them were cheering for their new heroes. Those among the crowd, of Japanese nationality, immediately praised their names Super Sentai, or Go Busters, which is heard by the other people in the crowd. The triumphant cheers of victory soon echoed across the whole country as the residents and onlookers celebrated the apparent end of the fierce battle, as the threat that had loomed over the country seemed to have been vanquished, bringing a sense of relief and elation to everyone present. The future members of Class 1A and 1B, who had been watching the events unfold, joined in the collective joy. Even countless people throughout the world and other nations also broke into cheers of celebration as they watched the live coverage that was provided by Chito's Kazuki crew. Ran, Midoriya, and Melissa begin to look at each other through their monitor screen with widened eyes from underneath their suits. Well, it's official guys, Ran said with a chuckle. We're screwed. He jokingly said with Midoriya, Melissa, Gorosaki, Yusada, and Nick laughing at the joke as they just caused another major incident. It would appear that things got a lot livelier in their world due to their official fight against the Vagless. Things have taken a turn for the change once again. The whole world has been watching. Things will never be the same. The rest of the main companions and their respective families and friends were sporting expressions that ranged from concern to excitement and genuine smiles. When the battle was over, the three pro-heroes, the Big Three, and soldiers started crying out joyful screams at the Valgas lose to the Sentai team. They won. They won. They won. Nijaya-chan cheered while hopping up and down from excitement and joy for her new friends. Now that's what I call saving the day. Lemillion said while laughing happily after that insane mecha battle the Go Busters had. This is going way too much for me to handle, Sun Eater said as he was glad it was finally over. Nice job there, Go Busters, Ryukyu said smiling brightly for the Go Busters' victory. I'm pretty sure everyone wants a piece of those kids now, Fat Gum said to Hound Dog with a genuine smile. Maybe so, but only time will tell. Hound Dog said with a nod. Everyone where Nizu, the Wild Pussycats, Aizawa, and Midnight erupted into cheers at the Go Busters' victory against the Vagless. DMN, problem children. Always gotta show off. Aizawa said his smile betrayed his words, as he felt unbelievably proud of his new students. Now that fight really got me all worked up. Midnight said with her body trembling lustfully. You and me both, sister. Pixie Bob said too with a pervy grin. Well done, Go Busters. You show everyone the true meaning of plus ultra. Tiger said while laughing. Those kids are one of a kind, Ragdoll said to Mandalay, feeling lucky to met those kids when they did. Yeah, doubt we'll ever meet anyone like them again, Mandalay said with a nod as she was happy to meet the Go Busters. Well, you certainly have exceeded our expectations, Go Busters, especially after this takedown. Nizu praised as his eyes were beaming with excitement and anticipation for the new future awaiting them. Now this is how you kick off a new era, he said before chuckling. Mina, Kirishima, and the other people at the evacuation shelter break out in cheers and shouts of joy as they are saved from the Valgas. That was the manliest thing I've ever seen in my life. Kirishima yelled in pure excitement, as he still couldn't get over that giant robot showdown. I knew, right? I'm so going to brag to everyone who we were saved by one of the Go Busters. Mina shouted with equal joy at this incredible experience. The Yaoyorozus and Himiko were seen driving away from the upcoming battle that was about to take place. They were watching the broadcast on the mini television in their limousine. Izuku and the other did it. Himiko shouted with happiness while hugging Momo tightly, much to the rich girl's comfort zone. Yes, I can see that, Toga. Momo said, feeling relieved for the Go Buster's success, while also struggling to breathe from the blonde girl's tight hold on her. But can you please release me? It's getting real difficult for me to breathe, she asked politely. Himiko eyes wide before immediately letting go of her. Oh, right. Sorry, she said with a little embarrassing giggle. Mona and Mito couldn't help but smile at their daughter making a new friend, as they then looked at each other before speaking. Those kids really are something special, Mona said to her husband with a smile. Yes, they are unlike anything our world has ever seen before, Mito said while looking at the TV with the image of the Go Buster O on the screen. And I get the feeling this is only the beginning of what is to come of them. Gang Orca, Edge Shot, Crimson Riot, Gunhead, and everyone else there applaud the young heroes for a job well done. Even if they are not licensed heroes, they have done a find here today. Crimson Riot said as he was glad for those kids stopping the Vaglas. Yeah, we never would have survived this without them, Gunhead said, rubbing the back of his neck. Indeed. We owe the Go Busters a great debt, Edge Shot said with his eyes closed and arms crossed. Those kids are going to do great things in the future. I just know it, Gang Orca said with a chuckle. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, 3 vigilantes were there helping people caught in the crossfire of the Valgas attack. The first is Pop Step, wearing an outfit that was a painting of a black mask, ties her hair in pigtails, and dresses in a devilish-themed one-piece black leotard with a heart-shaped opening in the center of the chest and a smaller one in the back, where it's located just below 2 bat wings. In addition to it, she also wears a reddish-pink bow tie, a pair of silver pearl earrings, black elbow-length gloves, a black super miniskirt with 3 hearts on the belt, and black knee-high boots. The second is the Crawler, wearing an outfit that was an all-might hoodie, as he thinks that wearing an all-might hoodie makes him more effective as a vigilante, but now over motorcycle protective gear along with gloves and boots. He rarely uses a black mask to cover his mouth and a pair of tinted shades to hide his eyes. The last one is Knuckleduster. The 3 vigilantes were looking at one of the jumbo screens on a building and watched the giant robot battle with great interest and awe. Ha ha ha. Now that was one all of fight. Knuckleduster laughed at the Go Busters' showing of power and tenacious win. I wouldn't mind fighting alongside those kids. Yeah, they're already interesting. I really want to do a concert with them. Pop Step said with stars in her eyes at the thought of working with the Go Busters. I knew they could do it. That was freaking amazing. The Crawler said with a proud smile. Tokyo Tower evening. All Might and Miruko stood together on the building's rooftop and had prideful grins on their faces at the Go Busters' victory. Those little punks actually pulled it off, huh, Miruko said as she never had a doubt in her mind about them losing. Indeed. They're going to do even more amazing things in the future. All Might said as he could see the Go Busters being the heroes this world needs. Meanwhile on the top of a nearby building, Endeavor stood wide-eyed and speechless at the sight before me as he witnesses the entire battle from start to finish. Midoriya resident evening. Back at the with Inko and Eri, the two busted in to celebrate overseeing that Go Busters saved the city from the Valgas. Yay! They won. Eri cheered with her arms raised in the air, as the feelings of positive complexity began to spring towards her innocent childlike heart. Izuku, my baby boy. I'm so proud of you. Inko shouted in pure joy while crying tons of tears that it began to flood their home. Izumi resident evening. They actually did it, Tatsuo said in awe and disbelief at what he just saw on the news from the Sentai team. And from the looks of it, they went all out too, Hayami said having a similar expression to like her husband at what they just witnessed. So cool. Kota shouted while jumping up and down, his face of pure excitement warming both of his Panthers' hearts. The term hero seems to pass through his thoughts. Feelings of amazement, admiration, and awe for the Go Busters. The team of heroes who saved his mother and father was his hero, the innocent child thought to himself in surprise. Hamacho Hotel evening. David looked on at the TV screen with a mix of deep, resonating pride and worry for what Melissa just did, as his daughter was now a Go Buster. Melissa! David exclaimed with a smile forming on his face at what his daughter just accomplished. You were really amazing out there. United States of America / Washington, D.C. evening. Over in the States, people in a military hangar were cheering for the Sentai team in Japan who single-handedly went up against an army of villains that had the power to destroy the whole country and came out on top. A woman who was sitting on a table in the back with her arms crossed was smiling happily after seeing the Go Busters mecha strike a victory pose. She was a tall woman with a well-muscled build. She had elegant facial features, narrow eyes, and long flowing blonde hair with 8 distinct tufts swept backward and fashioned in a similar manner to the ones All Might possess in his empowered form. Her hero costume was a high-collared skin-tight bodysuit with shoulder pads, boots, and gauntlets. Fitting to her home country and hero name, the upper torso was decorated in stripes, and her gauntlets and collar were studded with metal stars. Completing the outfit was a long, striped cape that resembled the U.S. flag. Her name is Kathleen Bate, also known as Star and Stripe, the #1 pro hero of the United States of America. Hey, Star! Did you see those kids fighting out there? One of the men in the hangar yells at the woman who turns to that man and nods. Yeah, I did. They were something else. Star and Stripe said as the man went back to cheering with his friends, as the woman looked back to the TV, looked at the Go Buster and let out an impressed nod. Not bad, kids, not bad at all. The woman says with a proud grin, as she is looking forward to what the Go Busters will do in the near future. Nabu Island / Shimano resident evening. The two Shimano siblings were overjoyed after seeing the Valgas defeat on television. They won, Mahoro. The Go Busters beat the bad guys and saved everyone. Katsuma shouted with a joyful expression on his face. Yeah, they sure did, Mahoro said with a small smile on her face at how much her brother looked up to those guys so much. Europe, Atheon / Seoul resident evening. In the Seoul resident, both of the youngest siblings cheer loudly after the battle is over, and the Go Busters saving the day. That was epic. Rhodey whispers in disbelief and relief at how it is finally over before smiling happily. Nice work, Go Busters. The Go Busters are so cool. I wanna be one when I grow up. Roro shouted with excitement. Me too. Lala shouted with equal joy. Rhodey only shook his head with a chuckle at how his siblings were fans of the Sentai team. Japan / Hero Public Safety Commission Conference Room evening. The people at the HPSC all began to cheer now that the apparent threat to their country was gone. Looks like we all get to live to see another day, Mara said with a sigh of relief, as he could use a nap after this whole mess. Yes, but Sayaka said while remembering Enter's words and how he was able to launch such an attack on the city with ease. I have a feeling that this is only the beginning, she said with a grim tone. Night Eye Agency evening. The members of the Sir Night Eye Hero Agency could only look at the TV screen with expressions of disbelief and bewilderment at the giant robot battle in the city. Wow, didn't expect that. Bubble Girl said in awe as she focused the camera view on Go Buster's mecha. Those kids sure are something else. Indeed. Even if they are vigilantes, they did a fantastic job at defending the city. Centipeder replied with a nod, as he was impressed by the Go Busters' heroic deed. Sir Night Eye sat there quietly as his eyes never left the screen as he was thinking about what he had just seen and how the public would react to this unforeseen development. So this is what they are capable of. Sir Night Eye stared down at the screen with a critical gaze. These vigilantes are more troublesome than I originally thought, and these new villains called the Valgas are only adding more problems to the table. I knew my gut feelings were right on this matter, he mentioned with utter certainty. Not once has his foresight ever shown him such a future with the Go Busters and Valgas. Nabu Middle School evening. The students of Nabu Middle School soon broke into celebration at Go Busters stopped the Valgas's rampage on the city, as everyone started cheering like there was no tomorrow. Shinso just quietly looked at his phone and didn't make a sound unlike his classmates cheered the Go Busters name. I wonder if I can fight like that too. Shinso thought as he was impressed by the Go Busters' fighting style. Shiketsu High School evening. The auditorium of Shiketsu High School erupted into cheers after the Go Busters stopped the Valgas. Wowie wow. Kami cheered at the news broadcast on the Go Busters' win. That battle was totally lich. They did it. Nagamasa said with widened eyes at the amazing show of heroism. They saved the whole city from being destroyed. Yeah, it seems so, Seiji said with narrow eyes as having mixed feelings about this. CI Academy evening. The all-girls school of CI Academy was thrown into a frenzy after witnessing the Go Busters' victory against the Valgas. Psycho was the only person in the gymnasium who wasn't cheering, as she could only smile brightly at the Go Busters' magnificent victory as she knew this would go down in history. Go Busters, how very interesting, Psycho said while looking live broadcast screen with a look of interest and curiosity. Ketsubutsu Academy evening. The students of Ketsubutsu Academy High School were blown away in silence at how the Go Busters saved the day before erupting into cheers of excitement. That was awesome. Tatami yelled while pumping her fists. They took down those villains like they were nothing while piloting giant robots. Yeah, and they did it without quirks too, Shindo commented with a grin. I really hope to get the chance to meet them in person. I agree. That was incredible. The Go Busters managed to defeat an army of villains on their own even though the heroes were having a hard time fighting. Itajiro said with great interest. I don't think I've ever heard of something like this happening before, Shiki added to the conversation. Ha 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 ha. That was something you don't see every day. Even in a world full of superhumans. Ms. Joke said while laughing, as she found that whole thing fight with the Go Buster and Vaglas entertaining as hell. Oh, I hope they do not get arrested after this. Because those kids are pure gold. She said excitedly. Tabita Resident evening. Gentle Criminal and La Brava just kept their focus on the screen with the duo's jaws dropped as they stared at the outcome of the battle. Did UHTJ just? Gentle Criminal finally broke the silence, stuttering. They summoned giant robots, combined them, and killed those things. La Brava finished with a shout, as she was shocked and also horrified at the way the Go Busters stopped the Vaglas. Gentle, just look at these comments. She said pushing her computer to her partner in crime. Gentle Criminal leads forward to see the live stream comments everyone from all over the world was making about the Go Busters display. Holy SHT. These three are nuts, they're fighting those things in freaking robots. This is crazy, I live by the coast and you can actually see a mecha battle, yeah, go Busters. You guys rule, keep fighting, heroes, La Brava read a few of the comments with the video has already gathered millions of views on the internet in a matter of seconds. This is insane gentle. They love these Go Busters and this battle of theirs is trending like crazy on social media. They're cheering these vigilantes on more than you. She was like at how the Go Busters outshined her gentle again. Well, it makes sense given what they just did. Gentle Criminal said nodding before his eyes went back onto the screen. They saved the city and possibly the whole country in a magnificent way, unlike anything the heroes have done before. He said with a little sad tone. Sure, he was glad they stopped those Vaglas from tearing apart the city, but he still couldn't help being a little envious towards them. That doesn't mean we can just give up. La Brava should with encouraging words to her idol. I knew that you could outdo them if you tried. You're absolutely right, dear La Brava. Gentle Criminal states confidently as if he just said the most brilliant thing ever. I'm sure with you by my side like usual, my popularity will increase again. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, Gentle. If there's anyone that can beat the Go Busters it's you. La Brava tells her idol, the ever-present look of devotion towards the man before her. Don't you mean us, La Brava? Gentle Criminal reminds the petite woman, making her remember how he always appreciated her extra help. Right. The two of us. La Brava joyfully said while nodding back to him. Grinning ear to ear, Gentle Criminal then raises a finger above him. Just wait for it, Go Busters. We're coming for you. Gentle Criminal declared while putting his pride on the line. Tartarus Prison, evening. The former pro-hero Lady Nagant couldn't help but smile at the screen of her phone after watching the entire battle as she then let out a happy chuckle. She knows that this whole incident was definitely going to turn some heads, especially for those in the Hero Public Safety Commission as they don't like the idea of having anyone this powerful running around and not under their thumb to control. Way to go, kiddos. Especially you my little green bunny. Kana said with a nostalgic smile on her face. You're finally a hero that you dream of. Musudafu Hospital, evening. Meanwhile, at the hospital, there was not a single person at the hospital who wasn't celebrating. The sight of the Valgas Megazord being defeated by the Go Busters made them cheer loudly, along with Masaru and Mitsuki being the happiest ones of all. My god, I still can't believe that was little Izuku who was fighting out there. Mitsuki said with a big but grin on her face as her friend's son saved the whole country. I bet Inko differently saw this too and is crying her eyes out from seeing her son being called a real hero. Yeah, I know we are, Masaru said with a nodding smile too. He really was amazing out there. He stated at Izuku's great accomplishment. As Masaru and Mitsuki were talking to one another, Bakugou sat in his bed quietly and had a shell-shocked expression on his face, as his eyes never left the television during the entire fight with his brain still trying to process what the hell he just saw. Bakugou just watched Deku and two other vigilantes fight a whole army of villains, that even the pro-heroes were struggling against and killed every single one of them that was in their way with ease. After the sludge villain attacked him, Bakugou's pride in worldwide took a major blow as he started to even question his own strength, and the boy began to realize that he was no longer the strongest one out there if he was struggling so much against a villain with a weak but quirk. Not just that, Deku also manages to save him with a fancy suit. This only shatters his pride even more, making him even more competitive, but now seeing Deku stopping a massive villain attack on the city in a way until anything he'd seen was the tip of this iceberg for him. Bakugou's quirk is his pride, and he also took pride in his ability to win any fights before. But that all changed when Deku helped him yesterday from that sludge villain who captured him, and today the nerd proves himself even more by ending this villain attack on national television for the whole world to see. What he was seeing when it came to Deku was that of a battle-hardened warrior that has the resolve to fight for his goals. Truly a far cry from the quirkless weak nobody he knew all his life. This Deku was giving his very all, trying his absolute best to save any civilian from within his sight, to assist the authorities in providing needed support, and to utterly decimate the enemy through the power that he is now wielding. The power of a Super Sentai. The weak, quirkless loser he bullied a long time ago and used as a stepping stone has changed, and he is now ahead of Bakugou in almost every aspect except for having a quirk. And this pissed the blonde boy off to no end. That's some, they. Bakugou gritted his teeth in unrighteous anger as he looked at that bstrd Deku and his two loser-vigilant friends on screen being praised as heroes while losing any sense of rationality with his anger reaching its peak. These FBSTRDS are going to pay for stealing my thunder. He finally exploded out loud like a rabid animal. Katsuki. Stop yelling in the hospital, brat. Mitsuki scolded her son for his unexpected outburst. Shai Hasaikai resident underground evening. At the underground hideout of the Shai Hasaikai, Chisaki and the members of the 8 Bullets stood there in utter shock and silence at what they had just witnessed from the Go Busters' battle against the Valgas and realized that getting Eri back was going to be more difficult than they thought. Well, SHT, we're F. Toya was the one who broke the silence, as he was still freaked out at what he had just witnessed. F. No, more like we're royally screwed. Soromitsu said with a tone that leaked any emotion. Oh, hell yeah. I definitely want to fight those kids now. Rappa said with pure excitement, as he was seriously pumped from watching that epic fight. Why do I even try with you, Rappa? Hekiji commented at the battle fanatic with an exhausting sigh. It was bad enough with 2 of those brats, now there are 3 of them to deal with. Didoro said with a headache. Not to maintain those giant DMN vehicles. Rikiya said with a grim expression at how they possess something like that. Yeah, just how in the world are we going to beat that? You asked with a stunned expression. That's the million-yen question. Shin said while rubbing his head at their predicament. This changes nothing, Overhaul said, getting the attention of his men, as his eyes were still focused on the TV screen. It doesn't matter what these Go-Busters have up their sleeves, it won't stop us from reclaiming Eri and killing those brats along with anyone who stands in our way. He said with an obsessed look in his eyes. As he was still watching the news, the rest of the Yakuza were a bit concerned about him. Hey Chrono, shouldn't we do something about him? He's been acting more aggressive than usual since Eri got stolen. Mimic asked as they stared at their boss watching the news with an instant gaze on his face. Kurono didn't know how to respond to this situation. This was the first time he had ever seen him act like this. For years he had never known Overhaul to be so fixated on a group of vigilantes. Then again, these Go-Busters were unlike any vigilantes or heroes they'd seen before, and it was quite surprising to see 3 teenagers on the news taking on an enemy of villains without breaking a sweat. It actually made some of them nervous because they knew these kids were not those they wanted to mess with and probably knew what they did to Eri and would come for revenge for her. We just need to get Eri back, as soon as possible. When she's back he'll calm down and get the deals flowing, things will go back to normal. Kurono said as Mimic was a bit hesitant but nodded in agreement. Europe, Atheon/Humorize Atheon branch headquarters evening. The evil organization known as Humorize's jaws fell as far as what they witnessed with their gazes still frozen on the screen from the giant mech battle. The members of the cult were having a difficult time processing this as panic and chaos began to spread throughout the hall of their base, while Fleck Turn had a neutral expression on his face as he thought over everything they just transpired in Japan. So this is what they are capable of. Fleck Turn stared down at the screen. I knew my gut feelings were right on this matter, but I didn't think it would be this big. He mentioned with utter certainty. So, what's our next move here, boss? How are we going to deal with the Go-Buster and more importantly those Vaglas? Barrows asked her leader. Contact all our branches from across the world, and tell them to meet us here in Atheon for an emergency meeting. Once they arrive we'll decide our next plan of action. Fleck Turn said to her with a tone of seriousness. Right, Barrows said with a nod before leaving to get in touch with their other members from around the world. Fleck then turned his attention back to the live broadcast while drowning out all the noise in the background, as he was still thinking about this new threat to their world. The Vagless, huh? Fleck thought to himself about Enter's announcement. Maybe they are what we need to cure humanity of the disease known as quirks. He thought as he would not let the quirk singularity doomsday theory come to pass no matter the cost. United States of America / unknown evening. The group of villain mercenaries stared at the screen, mouths wide open and faces full of disbelief after witnessing what was a historical moment in their world. What the hell was that? Nobu growled as couldn't believe what he just saw. I don't know. But those brats are more dangerous than we originally thought if they have weapons like this at their disposal, Daigo said, feeling a bit intimidated by the Go Busters' powers. After this mess, the heroes will be more of a pain in the butt to deal with now that they have these DMN brats. Swordkill complained as he ran his hands down his face. Go Busters. TSK. It's bad enough dealing with the pros, but now we have to deal with a bunch of brats with giant robots. Wolfram said with irritation at what he just saw on the news. Nothing will ever be easy, huh? Wolfram was definitely going to make some changes to his future plans now that these Sentai freaks were on the loss and knew he had to be ready to face a threat like them if they ever met in person. Japan / unknown evening. Nine's crew gulped in utter shock at the battle that took place just now as the four villains thought they were just dreaming at this moment. Each one of them had a gawking expression on their face from the giant robot battle that took place on national television. I wasn't just dreaming that, was I? Mummy muttered as he slumped down. How in the world did those kids get their hands on stuff like that? Slice managed out under a shuddering breath. Looks like dealing with these Go Busters just got more complicated, Chimera said, shivering slightly at what he just saw the vigilantes did. As for Nine, he looked absolutely livid at what he saw on the broadcast. Those vigilantes had power until anything he'd ever seen before without a quirk of any sort. What saw was a threat to his plans of creating his ideal world. Then without warning, he shot a bolt of lightning at the television, destroying it and making the others in the room jump in surprise from the unexpected action. 9. Slice shouted out in surprise at what Nine had just done. I'll kill anyone who stands in the way of our new world. Nine said coldly as he knew that these Go Busters would be a threat to his plans. Come on, we're going. He said, walking out of the room. Okay, but to where actually? Mummy asked in confusion. To Jakku City. Nine said, making his crew eyes wide as they knew what he was planning. So you're really going through with that deal then? Chimera asked with seriousness. If it is to create our new world, then yes. Nine said without hesitation as he needed more power to crush the Go Busters. Meta Liberation Army Headquarters evening. The population of Daika City was stunned in complete silence, as the whole city who had witnessed the clash between the Go Busters mechas and Vagless megazords was stupefied as they shared gobsmacked expressions. Even the leading members of the new Meta Liberation Army in Daika Tower were awestruck by the powers and technology these two groups possessed. And this is what we might have to face in the near future. Rikia commented with a frown about the Go Busters and Vagless. After this attack on the city, things are going to be more chaotic. As he could tell, this was going to be much more difficult than he originally thought. There's nothing we can do on that front at the moment. We have bigger things to worry about. Geeton interjected. Geeton is right, Redestro. We can deal with the pro-heroes later. In the meantime, we need more information about the Go Busters and those Vagless guys if we decide to fight them. Trumpet suggested to their leader. Right. After what happened to Endeavor and the other heroes, we need to stay one step ahead of these new players. Rikia said with a nod before looking at their local group hacker. Skeptic, find out anything you can about this Enter character and the Vagless. While we'll have Curious continue to dig up anything about the Go Busters. Right, boss, Skeptic said before typing away on his laptop as he got to work. You still think it a wise idea to use those vigilantes for your grand liberation in freeing this country restricted on our meta abilities? Trumpet asked his Grand Commander. Those Go-Busters are not like regular pro-heroes and they made it quite clear that they're against any crime no matter how small. You're right about the Go-Busters being wild cards. But they are just one of many useful tools for our grand liberation. We'll even use those Vagless too if we have to in order to accomplish our mission. And if they manage to become a problem for us later down the road, we'll take them out. Rikiya said with a grin of confidence. They certainly weren't small in numbers either, far from what they held within their town. They had operators everywhere, even amongst the heroes themselves. Despite this new development, our plans to free society's usages of quirks will not waver as it is our basic human right, Rikiya stated with a smirk as he leaned back in his chair. The quirkless have had their era, and now they are nothing more than the societal equivalent of the appendix. If we do not remove them, they will either remain useless lumps of flesh or strike back and kill us. He said with great resolve to their philosophy. Understood, sir. They exclaimed to their leader. Good. Dismissed, Redestro commanded as he gave the MLA salute, his fingers in the shape of an L on his forehead. All for the liberation of meta abilities. The three others in the room mimicked him, as they also held their thumbs and forefinger on their foreheads. League of Villains hideout evening. No 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 no. Tamura began decaying the second TV after the battle was over. Why did those brats have to win? They cheated. They're a bunch of cheating cheaters. Hackers. And hackers need to be banned. He screamed at the top of his lungs. His fantasy was broken as he watched the SHT show going on before him. Calm yourself, Tamura Shigaraki, Kurogyri said, trying to calm down the man. I know you are upset, but all this is not all bad. Shut it, Kurogyri. Tamura hisses at the sentient black mist. Kurogyri is right, Tamura. All for one said from the TV monitor to his student. Even if these Valgas have lost today, we still managed to learn a lot from them and the Go-Busters. He said this wasn't a total waste, as they now know what their enemy is capable of. But MSTR, those vigilantes BSTRD just had to ruin my fun. Tamura snarled in rage from thinking about those vigilantes. You told me I could kill anyone I didn't like. And those DMN Go-Busters seriously pisses me off as they remain me too much of all might. And you will, Tamura. But now is not the right time. After this latest incident, the heroes will be on high alert and this will give us a golden opportunity to work unnoticed as their main focus will now be on these Valgas. All for one said to his student. Speaking of these Valgas. A second voice from the TV monitor said in a concerned tone. What are we going to do about them? From what that enter fellow said, they seek to destroy our world and every human on it. I already have a plan in mind for them, Doctor. So if we play our card right, then they could prove to be a usual asset for us in defeating All Might and the Go-Busters. All for one said with a chilling tone. Tokyo Tower evening. Wow. They're quite good at this, Chitos mutters in shock, impressed at Go-Busters from the screen. For even in all her years as a journalist, never would Chitos have imagined a battle as simple and as glorious as what she had just seen, with Go-Busters fighting an otherworldly enemy with highly skilled combat and acrobatics, swift turns and strikes, rolling from one place while hopping to another at a zooming speed and taking down countless upon countless Vagless soldiers via the vital spots that were aimed, killing them instantly. We're done here. Let's head back to Daika City, Chitos said to her assistants to pack up everything, as they were done for today. But ma'am, what about the Go-Busters? One of the assistants asked her why they were leaving before meeting the heroes of the city. As much as I want to interview them, now is not the right time after everything that just happened today, Chitos said as she was satisfied with everything else they accomplished today. We will have plenty of choices to see the Go Busters in the future. Until then, let's report what learned back to the Grand Commander. She said before walking away from the scene. Yes, ma'am. All the assistants said to their boss while following her. She was definitely going to get an interview with them one of these days. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 10. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author GokuMuto on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.